All right. Looks like we're live. Welcome. Episode number 80 of the Before the Train Wreck series. The only show on the internet that shows you how to avoid making a train wreck out of your life, because a lot of guys like to. I'll be honest with you. All right. So this is a chapter straight out of my book. Book's done. Cover design's done. Just got to get, ISBN numbers and a few other things. I'm new to this stuff, so should be out there next week or so. Plenty of time before Christmas, so you can grab your copy very, very soon. If you haven't gotten on my email list, where's my banner for that? If you haven't gotten on my email list, hop on to it. It is, it's a ticker now. Okay, anyway, it's pinned in the top comment, or you can just go here. Let's see if I can follow that with my finger. This is actually a skill. Anyway, that's where you get on the email list. Let's throw up the chapter on the screen. And I've also dropped the join link for community members. If you guys want to ask a question live during this show, I'll go for an hour, maybe hour and a half on this one, but hopefully I'll be able to get through this chapter within the hour, because this is a very, very important one. Listen, I know a lot of guys out there are looking at the sexual marketplace and looking at women and dating, and they're like, yeah, should I have a wife? Should I have kids? Like, is that something I should be doing? What does that look like right now? Those are all very good questions to ask. And in this show, I'm unfortunately going to be telling you why smart men avoid marriage now. So let's get right into this. By the way, if you haven't joined the community, it's right there beside the subscribe button. Hit that. There's live chat, and I'll also be dropping the Zoom link for the monthly Q&A as well after this show. So hop on there if you want. So chapter 15 is the one. Let's throw this up on the screen. Does that work? Yes. Okay. All right. I'm not going to read this, word for word. I'm just going to kind of skim through it as my own talking points, but just for reference and why I need to cover these. So there's a lot to go through on this one. This is a big one to unpack. So again, I'm going to open this up by saying I am not opposed to marriage. The problem that I have with marriage is it's been destroyed. Okay. It's not a good deal for guys anymore. It is high risk with low reward, whereas for women, it is high reward with lower risk. There are a lot of guys that I've talked to and a handful of women that have all said marriage, specifically divorce, sucks. I find it interesting when women say that divorce sucks, because I think the female experience is quite a bit different than the male experience, which I'm going to examine in this chapter with you. Let's go. By the way, smash the like button, guys. See, we've got close to 400 or 500 guys watching. Let the YouTube algorithms know. It helps me out a ton. So again, I'm not opposed to marriage. This is our purpose on the planet, to scatter seed. Marriage just happens to be something that we've kind of like infused into that. But the problem with it is, let's go to the stats here. So there was a study by Avcito and Aaron on romantic love. And this is something I've talked about in a prior video, but let's apply this to the notion of marriage, right? After 8.39 years specifically, only 13% of people married, in a long-term relationship / married, okay, because it didn't distinguish from one or the other, reported that they felt romantic love, and only 2% felt obsession for one another. Now, I don't know about you, but those numbers suck. And they're going to suck even more when we get into the details of how the state gets involved in your personal life, like when you get married. And this is, of course, why smarter guys are avoiding marriage today. The purpose of marriage is very different. I'm going to get to that because that's also in the chapter, but the origin of it had nothing to do with love. Okay. So let's take 100 people and they get married. Okay. According to this data here from this study, if they're together 8 years down the road, okay, about 50% of them are going to be divorced. Let's be honest. So right away, you can take 50 and take them right out of the equation. It's done. Okay. That leaves you with another 50 people that are still married. So out of the rest of the people that are married, only 13 are still going to be in romantic love, and 2% are going to be in a state of obsession like bliss. The rest of them hate each other or are indifferent, at the very best. But that's the reality of it. And we're not very good at this marriage thing right now, especially in today's world, which we're going to get into a bunch of these other reasons over here. All right, so we've covered the chances of. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat over here to my right. See if I try to keep questions or super chat specifically on the topic tonight. It just makes it easier for me to kind of stay with it rather than bouncing around. All right, so we talked about it being high reward, low risk for women, and low reward, high risk for men. This is specific to Western family law, by the way. So Canada, United States, England, Ireland, Scotland, many parts of Europe, Australia, New Zealand. I've talked to over 400 guys on the Clarity platform alone. I've done several hundred other one-on-one coaching sessions with other men on different platforms. I've talked to a lot of people around the world, and this is consistent with any Western country. Feminized Western country where they bend the knee to a female first primary social order. What does that mean? You're probably hearing things where you live, like toxic masculinity, for example, or women make 76 cents on the dollar for every dollar that men make. If you live in a country where you hear those narratives, this will also be true as far as marriage goes. Right. Throughout history, men were the head of the household. They were legally responsible for the actions of their spouse and the children. They were permitted to keep order in their home by more or less whatever means they saw fit. If a man's home was his castle, then everyone within there were his vassals. Now, that's changed dramatically. I remember when I was reading Stephanie Kuntz's book, I think it was a History of Marriage. Yeah, History of Marriage, which I reference here. It was around the 1800s that they first started changing the laws and favoring a more female first primary social order. It took decades, in fact, well over 100 years for all this to take place, but this is where we are today. Today, though, men have all those same responsibilities, and they also had the authority back in the day, several hundred years ago, but today you still have responsibilities, the same responsibilities, but no authority. And that's just the way that it works. You're no longer the head of your own household anymore. The state is. And I'm going to explain to you why as we kind of dive through all these points over here. There was a time where masculine virtues were both respected and valued, but over the last 150 years, this toxic version of progressive feminism has changed all of that. In line with a lot of other really dumb, simpy choices that men have made, if I'm being honest, because they, of course, supported and endorsed a lot of these changes as time went on. So again, men no longer have the authority in their household, but they still have 100% of the responsibility. Men still have the responsibility, even if women leave them. And I'm going to be talking about in this chapter why women often are encouraged to leave men by the state, to, in fact, divorce them. I think we can skip the Me Too stuff. Let's talk about family law, because this is an important component. I had no idea what family law was like, to be honest with you, when I got married. It was a big, big surprise. And I learned about a lot of stuff myself personally, firsthand experience. I learned a lot of stuff browsing a lot of divorce forums. If you want to, let me put it to you this way. If you want to scare the shit out of your 18-year-old son as he's kind of graduating high school, take him to a family court afternoon and just sit in there and watch what happens to guys. Watch how family law treats guys. Or alternatively, you can let him, sit through and browse through, things like divorce forums so you can understand the concept. That was just the tip of the iceberg for me. Then I ended up talking to several hundred guys through coaching sessions that have been dealing with similar types of situations. You start to see that there's a pattern that evolves out of all of these behaviors. This book, by the way, guys, this is a collection of stories and experiences and conversations most men should have had with their fathers but never did. So I've basically taken everything that I thought that was the most important lessons that I've learned over the last number of years that I've been running the channel, especially talking about the stuff that I have been specifically for the last few years, and I've distilled it all in the book. So this specific chapter on why smart men don't marry anymore, it's relevant from all of those experiences. This is the most up-to-date information that I can provide with you guys today. So anyway, I was dead wrong about family law and divorce. One of the things that really stood out, he said to me, if you have the penis and go to court, you're going to lose, and badly. Okay, these were the words of my family lawyer. And I thought to myself at the time, well, hadn't feminism leveled the playing field? Aren't women equal to men, Why am I being told by default that I'm going to lose, and badly, because I was born with a Johnson hanging between my legs, right? They say that the original intent of these progressive changes, this is what I heard anyway from family lawyers, was to deal with the deadbeat dads that didn't look after their kids, right? Well, it dealt with that, and then it kept going and became a supremacist movement that took away all the power from men, and it hasn't stopped, and it's given all of that authority to the state and to women now, right? So if you get married in the West today, don't think for a second that you're the man, that you're the boss, that you're in charge. You can't out alpha the state or a woman that is scorned or wants to bounce on you. You just can't. It's just not possible. You can have solid frame. You can be a top shelf guy and hope things don't go that way. And hey, maybe you end up in the, like the top 2% that live in bliss, or the top 13% that still live in romantic love. Maybe that will happen, but the chances are, what I'm going to talk about over here is going to be the more probable outcome, right? So 50% chance you're going to end in divorce. Let's talk about some of the trump cards. The most interesting one that I came across, sorry, I'm going to back up a little bit because I made an important point here in the book. We talk about the people that get divorced, and then we talk about the people that are still living in bliss, which is a very small percentage. There's no real official way to know the number of people that still stay married that are like off the chart unhappy with where they're at, but they either don't have the courage, the financial resources, the balls, whatever you want to call it, to leave that marriage. Or maybe it's not financially feasible. There could be a whole bunch of reasons, but they're living in a state essentially of incarceration. They've signed up for a jail sentence when they end up in that category, because they can't get divorced and they're not romantically blissfully in love. So they're somewhere in the middle, and it's not a good place in the middle, because if they could leave, then they would generally leave. So there's something holding them back. They're not, they've been married for 7 years and they blimped out and got fat, and there's no chance of one leaving the other because they're not going to do any better on the other side of the fence, and they know it. They may not have the financial resources. Maybe they rely on each other schedule-wise for children. I don't know. There could be any number of things, but they're certainly not off to new pastures, and they're certainly not living in bliss, right? Back to the domestic violence charges. Hey, welcome, Spencer, as a new member to the channel. Appreciate you joining. Let's talk about this trump card that women will always have. So domestic violence charges alleged by the mother against the father are a trump card that has been built into Western family law. Men can forcibly be removed from their own home by the police for false or exaggerated claims of domestic violence. I don't know if you guys remember, but I did it before the train wreck with, I think there was 8 or 9 police officers. And one of the topics that came up was domestic violence. I've also had private conversations with law enforcement about stuff like this as well. And essentially, you just shut your mouth, you don't say anything, and they're going to take you away. It's just the way that they operate, because you're the guy. It doesn't even have to be proven on the spot. They can literally take you away and lock you up that night, and there's nothing you can do about it. There was a guy that posted about this the other day, and he had served in the military. I made a video about this, actually. I've got to do the edits on it still. He served in the military, did 3 tours of duty off in Afghanistan, came back, wife files a false domestic violence charge against him. It takes him a ton of money to beat it and clean it up off his record. And then after he beat it, did all the work to get shared custody of his kid. Then the government comes after him because of the false domestic violence charge to take away his possession and acquisition license, meaning he can't own hunting firearms, right? This is a guy that grew up, out in the country and, was familiar with this. This was his way of life with family. They would hunt, sort of thing. So Even after all this was cleared up, because she falsely alleged that he was scary, because big man bad sort of thing. Then the government then comes after his ass after he clears his name, gets shared custody, because they feel like he's not deserving of or he's not responsible enough to own firearms to hunt. But he was responsible enough to go overseas on 3 tours of duty and dodge bullets, for to save the West from tyranny. And he comes back to discover that the true tyranny was domestic and at home. And it's not good, right? So anyway, they can make false or exaggerated claims of domestic violence, which also includes being alienated from their children. So immediately what ends up happening is, if you're going through a separation or a divorce, there's a precedent that needs to be set with access to the kids. And if for whatever reason you get removed from the kids, let's say for 90 days because you're incarcerated, or there's a restraining order or something because of the false domestic violence charge, a new precedent is set where the mother starts to become or look more like the primary caregiver of those kids. And even if he was doing things like taking them to soccer practice or hockey games and getting up at 5 a.m. and making their breakfast so they could play hockey or any of those things, he would have no rights to access those kids because of what has changed with a false domestic violence charge. This is a very, very powerful tool. Most women understand how to use this, and it always works out in their favor. It's not something like a guy can never pick up the phone and go, "Yo, 911, I'm scared of my wife right now because I think she might kill me. She's a very yelly type of individual and bossy, and I'm really scared." And it's like, dude, I'm like over 200 pounds and over 6 foot tall, and you think that the cops are going to look at a 5 foot nothing, 120 pound soaking wet chick and think that they're a threat to anybody? That's not the way that it works. I can't make a false allegation like that. It just doesn't go down. But all day long, it happens with women. So you have to understand that it's there. Like, it's a tool in the toolbox. Guys, do me a huge favor. Share this broadcast, all right? Let me grab the link here. I'm going to remove this from the screen. Let's take a quick break. Grab the link here and copy. And do me a favor. Just share this, okay? Throw it on Twitter. Throw it on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, hit that link. Come watch it over here. Appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Let's throw the super chat up here. Deal with this real quick. Eder Santos says, high functional marriages are ideal for raising strong men and feminine women. Bad marriages do the opposite, but everything you say is right. Yeah, I totally agree. Listen, if you want to have kids, you should have a mother and father in the equation. I'm not opposed to that. I want to be very, very clear on that, because there's some guys that come up with some batshit crazy ideas to like, have a nanny and have a surrogate and have a bunch of kids and buy eggs and all this kind of shit, or they'll do some like foreign import. They've got all kinds of ideas that get cooked up, but the ideal situation for raising children today: strong, masculine, virtuous father, feminine mother. They cooperate. They complement each other's lives, if you will. So yeah, listen, it is what it is. I'm not saying don't get married. I'm not saying get married. I'm saying these are the facts that you need to understand. If you're going to march in the slaughterhouse, do it with your eyes wide open. All right. Full screen layout. Now let's go this layout. That's better. Okay. So we talked about domestic violence. I shared that story. Here's another story from the book. There was a guy that decided that he had enough after he found out his wife was cheating on him. And during the separation period, and it wasn't one guy, by the way, it was a few dudes. Like, this chick was on a tear. She went to Pound Town with everybody she possibly could. Like people like the kid's coach, right? From the dojo. But here you go, right? So he became upset with her one night and pointed the finger in her face and angrily proclaimed, "You're a fucking liar," like this. And that was enough for him to get a false DV, okay? It's absolutely vital that you always keep in mind the following phrase: women that you marry is never the same woman that you divorce, okay? Don't think for a minute nothing's going to change. Don't think, she's always going to be who you thought she was. The thing that a lot of guys come to recognize is that women always reserve the right to change their mind at any given time, if they so choose, right? Now, you also have to understand that Western family law is written in such a way that assumes that women are the weaker sex and men are the privileged, and that men are the abusive sex by default. It's just default understanding. Like women have boobies, men are the abusive one. That's just the way that it is. That's how family law works. Let's talk about how women behave during divorce. So this is infused in here because this is going to happen to 50% of the people that are going to get married. If you're a second time round marriage, I think the number is higher, like 75 to 80%. Third time is even higher than that. It's just a disaster. Anyway, so how women behave. So between the combination of family law and female nature, women are motivated to behave incredibly poorly to the father of their children during the divorce. I'm assuming that there's children in the equation because really there's no point in getting married if you're not going to have kids. It's utterly pointless in my view. Don't do it. I'll tell you straight up, Rich, should I get married and not have kids? No, don't do it. It's stupid. There are significant female-centric financial rewards that have been well written into family law, encouraging them to be the sole custodial parent of the children. By becoming the parent that is a primary custody of the children, that gives primary custody or care to the kids, money and all decision-making capacity goes to the parent awarded custody, which 8 times out of 10 is the woman. Now, I'm going to pause for a second to say, I'm not a lawyer. If you need legal advice, talk to a lawyer where you live. And in fact, before any of you Muppets out there decide to get married, you need to screw your head on right and buy at least an hour of time from a family lawyer that deals with divorce on a regular basis where you live to find out what you could be marching into. You want to know exactly what the slaughterhouse looks like so you can make an informed decision. You may want to move to another state or province that's more favorable to fathers if you're hell-bent on getting married. That might be one of the conditions that has to be met. And if she's truly in your frame and sees you as her best possible option, she will follow, right? But this is just something that I wanted to pause for the cause and clarify for you. So 8 times out of 10, women still get custody of the kids. Now, women are opportunistic by nature. It's hardwired into them. It's part of the reason why we as sapiens are a successful species, right? This is what solipsism meant. Without opportunism, her children were less likely to survive. You can't blame women for this. It's an evolved survival mechanism. The problem, though, is that everything in family law is built into it to be able to take advantage and optimize that part of female nature, right? I mean, it's no surprise. Anyway, so women need the skill, obviously, to find the best provisioning mate to optimize their hypergamy. If you give someone that's naturally opportunistic incentive to benefit at another's expense, then guess what? They will do it, okay? Part of human nature. People are self-interested, men and women. Women are more, from the sense of solipsism. You can always tell the differences from this phrase because when they tell women to do something that's right, what they say is you do what's right for you, girl, right? But when they tell guys to do what's right, they say you got to do what's right, basically like stand up, be the stand up kind of guy and take one for the team, right? Because guys are disposable. Women are the protected sex because, sex is just the way that it is. I skipped the part on marriage, actually. So I just remembered. So Stephanie Coots wrote a book on I think it's called either The Origin of Marriage or The History of Marriage. It's several pages back. I'm not going to scroll. You'll find it when you read the book. It's something that I recommend that you check out. But the original purpose of marriage had nothing to do with love. It was all about the acquisition of in-laws, meaning you weren't going to survive. You weren't going to do well in the world if you weren't part of a tribe where you had in-laws that had certain capacities and skills and capabilities and strengths and financial resources and influence. That was what marriage was all about. It was about the acquisition of in-laws. You wanted bigger farmland, more oxen, more goats, larger plot to pop out all your kids, to sire those children, of course. And it's interesting, when I was going through that book, there was actually quite a few times throughout history where men by default had custody of the kids if there was ever a divorce. Everything that they went through, legal records, journals, diaries, all that stuff, nobody got married for love. It was all about the acquisition of in-laws. That took a back seat. If that existed, then that was great. But for the most part, it didn't, right? So you just have to understand that. So it's only in recent history, like today, over the last, I'm going to say 25 to 50 odd years, that female opportunism has had the full backing of the state behind it as family law, right? Prior to 100, 150 years ago, it just didn't exist. And when the father got custody of the children, He would often retain all the family assets, including what she brought to the table. They've completely flipped the script on this. Go read Marriage: A History. Interesting book. Very, very interesting book. Now, this is one of the problems with the whole divorce situation is once the custodial parent has those rights, they can make unilateral decisions without the other parent's consent. Let me translate that for you. They can do whatever the hell they want without the other parent's input. So you contribute 50% of the DNA to the child's equation, but you have no say in medical procedures, what school they go to, what religion they follow, where they live. Any number of things can happen depending on where you live, up to including changing the kid's last name to the new guy that gets brought into the family. The Brady Bunch is then created. They try to infuse families. What do they call it? Blending the family. He brings 2 or 3, in tow from his prior marriage. She's of course got your kids most of the time. He ends up seeing your kids more than you do, and they end up with his last name. Stuff like this happens. A lot of guys, what are you talking about? That's not, it happens. It happens more than you think, right? I mean, there's so many different scenarios that I could go through here to kind of, expand and dive down on it. But this would literally take 6 hours for me to list them all. But here we go. So we've talked about custodial rights, how women are incented to behave badly during the divorce. Let's talk about alimony, also known as maintenance. It's the first level of responsibility men often pay their ex-wives. So if you're the breadwinner in the house and she doesn't work or earns significantly less, like you said, stay home, look after the kids. We've got 3 of them. You're going to stay home and raise them until they go to school. The problem that you run into, the benefit, of course, is that's the best way to raise them. Statistically speaking, I suppose, based on the evidence that I've seen anyway. But then you run into the problem of if she wants to divorce your ass 7 years down the road, when that's usually the first round. And guess what? She's been the primary caregiver. She's been at home, raising the kids. She hasn't worked. You're on the hook for alimony. Depending on where you live in the world, you could be on the hook for alimony for life, right? There's all kinds of complications that come with that. And it's not just, basic living expenses like, oh, here's $3,000 a month, and you have your apartment paid for, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about everything. Everything's good, sweetheart. No. If you're making a lot of money, you're making $500,000, $1 million a year, and you get divorced and you got to pay alimony, you're going to be maintaining the lifestyle that she had while she was married after you get divorced. You're essentially paying for your lifestyle today times 2. Okay, you're going to have to maintain 2 homes. I mean, most guys end up downsizing their home or buying some shittier place, or they move out of the matrimony home and let her keep it. But you're maintaining 2 homes if she didn't work, if she didn't have the ability to work. So that's a very expensive cost. All these strong, independent women that don't need no man, all of a sudden need no man when he's got the ability to pay $20,000 a month in alimony to her. They need that man then, right? But any other time, they don't need no man, right? Again, you have 100% responsibility, even after divorce now, after you break up. You go back 500 years ago, you didn't have any responsibility if you got divorced. She'd have to figure it out on her own. She'd go back to her family, work in a brothel, not your problem. You'd end up having all the assets and custody of the kids. Today, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're just talking about alimony here right now. Let me grab this super chat. Laughing Lark. In Mad Men, when Betty wanted to divorce Dawn, her lawyer warned her that she would lose the kids and her home. That was the 60s. Yeah, so if that's the way they did it in the 60s, it wasn't that far off that, divorce was not attractive to women. Today, it's very attractive to women. I'm going to show you an exact example here, how the government actually encourages women to divorce men and become single mothers. Anyway, so you're responsible for the upkeep of the standard of living after the marriage ends. Doesn't matter, what that looks like. It's not, well, I feel like giving her 3,000. It's no, you have to maintain her standard of living after that. Could be for life. In some places like California, if you were married for 10 years plus, it could be for life. Let's talk about child support. Child support is paid to the custodial parent to cover the cost of raising the children. Now, contrary to popular belief, the payment amount is not based on what the children actually need to survive. So You're a father, you're taking care of, I don't know, a 3-year-old. You got transitional diapers, a little bit of clothes, maybe a little bit of childcare. Maybe your total monthly cost, food, meals, maybe your total monthly cost is $1,000 a month, okay, for child support for that child. It's not based on what the child actually needs to survive. It's rather based on state-issued tables. So I put here in the chapter, I had a friend that calculated that during his marriage, his monthly cost to look after his kid for food and everything was around $500 a month. The state-issued child support tables, however, compelled him to legally, enforceably pay $4,367 every single month. Child support, for the most part, goes to the mother, not the kids. So we have the first layer, which is alimony, which goes to the mother, then child support. Even if the kid needs $1,000 a month, okay, to survive, for its necessities. And of course, you're going to want to pay that. It's your child, right? Why the hell wouldn't you want to pay it? But if the child needs $1,000, why aren't you paying $1,000? Why are you paying $4,367? Where does the extra $3,367 go to? And there's no accounting for it, by the way. Okay, there's no accounting for her to you as a father with what she does with that money. And, oh, by the way, it's after-tax money, right? So the tax consequences here anyway in Canada are very, very high. So take it for what it is. Anyway, so that's the way child support works, generally speaking, on a balance of probabilities. Let's talk about matrimonial assets. So matrimonial assets are divided after the knot is untied, usually 50-50. So you take everything that you acquired through the course of the marriage, you shove it in a big pile, you cut it down the middle, you take half, piss off, this is mine, and you stay on your side. That's basically, generally speaking, the way that it works if you've been married for a long time and you don't have a prenup that speaks to that issue. Although places like Australia, where more than half of the assets can be awarded to the mother. Shocking, right? So every asset you acquire before or after your nuptials goes in a pile, you split them. Okay, we talked about that. Now, prenuptials can, in some areas, protect this, but they're not very effective, if I'm being honest. You have to have a prenup, ideally a postnup, meaning after you sign your nuptials, you have another agreement that basically says nothing's changed. We're still agreeing to this. We've signed. We still love each other. We hope nothing changes, but this is the rule of law that we're going to follow. Now, here's the problem, though. If you're all of a sudden like, okay, let's go have those 3 kids, and then I'm going to go to work and I'm going to bring home the bacon and she's going to cook it up and she raises the kids, and she's done that for 8 to 10 years. And again, she hasn't worked. And of course, the argument that the state will make is, well, her skills are out of date. She's no longer able to go into the workforce and make the $50,000 a year she was before she got married, because 10 years have passed. She's raised 3 kids. Her skill set has changed. She needs to update her skills. She can't afford to do that. So let's put her on alimony and child support, and we'll let, the pleb over here take care of all that while he watches her alienate him from the kids. That's usually what ends up happening. But anyway, so the prenup, going back to that, if that 10 years has passed and you haven't refreshed it or you haven't updated it, which most people don't do, it just doesn't happen, then guess what? It's worthless. It's like toilet paper. It's basically worth toilet paper. Okay. The state doesn't deprive women and what they call the best interests of the children, but they're not really looking after the best interests of the children. They don't let women fall flat on their feet, right? We can't let women fall flat on their feet. I think I was watching Rollo the other day on a cast, and he said something to the degree of, we treat women like children today. And he's right. He's not wrong, because they won't let women fall flat on their feet and figure it out, for themselves. If he has the financial resources, guess what? Let's milk them and transfer them over here, right? But it's in excess. It's excessive is the point that I'm making, right? These strong, independent women that don't need no man, if they can get a job or at least get by on a bare minimum of $3,000 or $4,000 until they figure something out, and they don't make their problems men's problems, then guess what? They're less likely to want to behave badly, especially during the course of the divorce or even in the marriage, and ruin things. But there's no incentive for women to behave well. They can go and bang every dude they want. They can bang your kid's soccer coach, the guy that teaches them jujitsu. She can go and bang the yoga instructor. She can go on a tear and ride the carousel for all she wants and videotape it and have it playing on the TV when he comes home. And that still doesn't change any of this. None of it changes. None of it. No fault divorce, right? Anyway, since men rarely stay home to raise the kids and women are hypergamous in their mate selection, meaning they always marry up, you can always expect the guy to transfer wealth over to her through the state. And it's excessive again. Okay. Again, hypergamy doesn't care if she vows with love to be with you in richer or poorer, in sickness and health, till death do us part. Does not care. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Divorce. This is an interesting one because Mackenzie Bezos was one that got divorced earlier this year or last year, whenever it was, but she became the richest woman in the world by way of divorce. Divorce, not career or entrepreneurship, is statistically still the number one way that women acquire their wealth today, right? Strong, independent women acquiring their wealth through divorce. They didn't have it before they got into it, but they definitely get it on the exit strategy. So you can see how women are not encouraged to behave well and to stay married to men. Don't like it? You know, you think you can do better somewhere else? You go, girl. You do what's right for you. Divorce his ass. Take half of all the shit. Custody of the kids. You'll make all the decisions. You'll get alimony and child support. You go find the new guy, right? You can do better. That's what they tell them. Yeah, I was sitting in a Starbucks once. I put this in the book. I overheard this. This like sickened me when I heard it. She said, I can divorce him, take half his shit, the kids, the house, and not need to put up with his dumb ass anymore. Literally, straight from the horse's mouth. Okay. It's funny because I was working on the book when I was sitting there working on another chapter and I heard this and I'm like, I'm going to write that shit down. Happens, right? Let me grab the super here. Super chat from Laughing Lark says, make damn sure it's your kid. Yeah. I covered cuckoldry and paternity fraud in the book as well. I don't have it in front of me, but the data is somewhere between 10 and 30% of men are cucked by women. That includes marriages too. You can read more about that when it comes out, though. What did Diesel Mind here say? Was it in the 1980s that Western law had the incentive for divorce shifted to women? I don't know when exactly, to be honest with you. Somebody mentioned earlier, taking frame from a 1960 like period show, that women were going to do poorly in divorce. So I think it all started with these waves of feminism, which were designed to equal the playing field and basically make sure that deadbeat dads were paying for kids that they sired. And like I said earlier, they got that. They're like, cool, we got it. Tick that box, but let's keep going now. Let's see what else we can get these dancing monkeys to do for us. So that's the way that it is. Anyway, so how the state encourages women to become single mothers. My hot drink has become a cold drink. By the way, you can get these mugs in the merch store. Perfect for Christmas, Boxing Day, New Year's. Hey, even Thanksgiving, if they'll let us have our gatherings, right? In the spring of 2019, I had angry single mommy journalists from around the world attacking me for warning men on Twitter about the dangers of getting into relationships with single mothers. About a dozen hit pieces were manufactured from all from a 3-minute clip. I mentioned whether you can find the video. So an overwhelming show of support came from men and from women praising me for shining a light on the unflattering subject. But this golden nugget appeared from this commenter. So Kim Brown, I don't know who you are, but thank you. I'm going to read this to you. It's probably going to be hard to see on your screen, but she said, the thing that infuriates me is my hubby makes about $50,000 per year. I make about half that. Hypergamy, right? Women always marry up. But when you are talking to people about taking responsibility for themselves, you do realize that if I were to leave my husband and I were to become a single mother with government benefits, I'd have way more money. I'm going to say that again. This chick figured out being married is stupid. If she left her husband, she would have way more money on government support and other benefits that are tied into the divorce process by becoming a single mother. We pay in taxes as a couple, she goes on to say, opposed to what the government would give me. sorry, what we pay in taxes as a couple as opposed to what the government would give me if I was on my own isn't even close. So when women leave their husbands, they are improving their situation. And until that changes, nothing else will. It's quite sickening, actually. Society rewards those who make bad choices. Now, she expanded because I followed up on her, and she said, my friend who's a single mother who does the exact same job as she does and makes the same money as she does, we sat down and compared our finances. Now, she said her husband made 50, she made half. So let's assume she's making 25,000. She's saying that her friend makes $25,000 doing the exact same job as her. So she sits down with her friend, who's a single mommy, divorced, and compare their finances with all the subsidies, the tax breaks that she receives from the government. And she has $1,000 a month more than her family's disposable income. To me, that's not just rewarding single mothers, it is actively punishing middle to low income women for staying with the father of their children. This woman has recognized that the state incentivizes women to become single mothers and leave their husbands. They financially incentivize to the amount of $12,000 a year in this case. That's not a huge amount of money. It's still $12,000 more than what you have right now. And guess what? You don't have to put up with this dumbass either, right? You go, girl. You do what's right for you. So are you surprised that women are leaving men? Like, women initiate 8 out of 10 divorces. Are you surprised that this happens? I'm telling you guys, this book is going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people. I really hope that you guys hop on this and grab a copy when it's published. Again, get on my email list. If you're not on it, where's my banner here? Put the ticker up for you. If you're not on the email list, get on it, okay? You will be notified there when the book becomes available. It will be a lifesaver for a lot of men. Now, I don't know if there's any more damning piece of evidence that the state encourages women to leave their marriages, but there you have it. You guys decide. Now, there's always arguments for marriage, right? I'm going to flip the train around here and talk a little bit about the other side. Some men might argue that their girlfriend is a God-fearing religious woman, or that his beautiful fiance comes from a home with conservative values that was unbroken by divorce, and both their parents are still happily married for 20 plus years. This is not enough for 2 reasons. 1, women always reserve the right to change their mind at any given time. And 2, even conservative, God-fearing religious women will leverage corrupt family law legal system to benefit from the divorce. How do I know this? I've talked to a lot of guys that have exemplified this exact story. Rich, I'm getting divorced. This is what's happened. Okay, tell me a little about your wife, because I'm trying to understand the psychology behind where she's coming from. And she starts out before the wedding as a conservative, God-fearing, from an unbroken family woman, looked very feminine with long hair, voted for conservative values, blah, blah, blah. 15 years into the marriage, I think it was 10 years into her HR job for some government organization. And guess what? She's leaving his ass. And she understands how family law works. She's completely changed her tune, cut her hair short, dyed it purple. Women reserve the right to change their mind at any given time. I said this earlier. The woman you marry is never the same woman that you divorce. So you have to understand that the argument for marriage saying, oh, she's the perfect catch, add right now to the end of that, because that can change over time. And often for most guys, it does. I can skip through that because I kind of told most of that story. Yeah, you ever notice how single mothers get celebrated during Father's Day? You hear them on social media like, oh, happy Father's Day to all the mothers out there that are doing the jobs of both. Anyway, let's skip through some of this stuff here. All right. What I'm going to do is, as I'm kind of cleaning up the last bits of this chapter, I'm going to grab the invite link, copy to clipboard. Okay, if you want to hop on the stream and ask a question, I'll allow you to do that tonight, because I think this is a relevant topic. So join and ask a question. I only have a little bit more that I got to go through here. Okay, that's the link there. Okay, so we talked about the arguments for... Oh, this is the early edit of the book. It doesn't have it highlighted like it did in the final. Okay, so I got to find it. Excuse me. Arguments for marriage. So feminization. Give me a second here. I'll find where I needed to catch up on. So let's talk about divorce and suicide. I've already talked about how I felt on the exit of the divorce process on my end. It was the only time in my life that I contemplated suicide driving down the highway. So just take off the seatbelt, floor it, hit the freeway overpass. Obviously, I got past that and pulled myself together, but it was easily the lowest part of my life. Going through the divorce machine is easily going to be the lowest part of everybody's lives, men and women inclusive, but men don't get men always get the short end of the stick when it comes to shit like this. It just is what it is. Divorced men are more than twice as likely to commit I've changed my language. Divorced men are more than twice as likely to take a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You guys can understand that. And are almost 10 times more likely to do that than divorced women. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Screw over daddy deal. The screw over daddy deal is an interesting one because this is a common custody arrangement where guys get every other weekends and then like a Wednesday night dinner or maybe like a Wednesday overnight. But the key thing is that the custody arrangement for the woman, there's a line in the sand somewhere depending on where you live. Like here in Ontario, in Canada, if the father has the child 41% of the time or more, it's shared custody, right? As soon as you go over 60% as a parent, like if you have the child 61% of the time or more, you're the custodial caregiver. So what ends up happening in most cases, the deals that fathers get is they get every other weekend, which gives mommy just enough time to go out on the weekends with her girlfriend every other weekends and go and party it up, and a Wednesday night dinner. But it still allows all the money to flow to them. They get to make all the decision making, right? Unilateral decision making. She wants to do medical procedures, religious changes, change the last name, depending on where you live, any number of those things can happen, right? So you have to understand that, kids need both parents. The screw over daddy deal is not a good one. This is just what family lawyers call this around here. I don't know what they call it in other places of the world, but that's usually the deal that ends up coming out of this, right? And you end up in a situation that destroys the fabric of society. 43% of kids today are raised by single parent households, which specifically means because women get 80% of the custody orders, they are basically raising most of these children, right? That like 43% of kids are raised by mommies only. The father has very little to no involvement in the picture. And make no mistake, fathers want to be involved in their kids' lives for the most part, right? Especially if they got married and, they were together for a while. But some bad stuff happens, right? It's not good for kids for a number of reasons too. So divorce does not improve the fabric of society from this perspective. Like fatherless boys and girls are twice as likely to drop out of high school, twice as likely to end up in jail, 4 times more likely to need help for emotional or behavioral problems. It's just not good. 85% of youths in prisons grew up in fatherless homes. 85% of children who exhibit behavioral disorders came from fatherless homes. 71% of pregnant teenagers lack a father. 63% of youth attempts to make permanent changes to a temporary problem in their life come from fatherless homes. Mothers, by an overwhelming margin, are doing the majority of the child rearing post-divorce, and despite how single mothers have been praised in the media for being strong and independent, they do a terrible job at it. This is how marriage changes men. I see a bunch of guys waiting there to hop on and ask a question. Just stand by. I got a little bit more to do. Let me grab the super chat here. Woo, Nelly. Is it ever a good idea to move in and share things with a woman? No. Do not live with a woman unless you're going to get married and have kids. You can have a cohabitation agreement when you get older and live with a woman, yeah. But generally speaking, no. If you're a younger guy, don't do it. A lot of the arguments that younger guys use is like, well, my rent will be cut in half and I'll have easy, consistent access to lots of intimacy. No, a lot of it's those two selling points that you're selling yourself on, they don't last long term. Okay. Another super chat here says, she's not yours, it's Chad's turn. All right. How marriage changes men. One, your testosterone levels drop. When you get into a marriage, and this is proven, this is biologically proven, right? This is not a natural, sorry, this is a natural response to things because you're no longer out there competing. You're no longer, technically on the market. Your testosterone levels drop. That's why men start to go through this process of betatization through 1,000 concessions, usually often when they get married, because their T levels drop. And all of a sudden stop saying no to her and they start stamping everything with yes, 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 honey, yes, yes, okay, yes, 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 yes. You ever see that stand up? You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, unmarried men the same age have higher testosterone levels than their married counterpart. Paternity fraud. I cover this in a different part of the book in more detail, but again, I already talked about that. Somewhere between 10 and 30% of kids born in a relationship, marriage, whatever you want to call it, not yours, somebody else's. You should always get a paternity test if you're suspicious. Betatization by 1,000 concessions. I talked about this briefly. Let's spend some more time on it. The vast majority of men will find themselves going through the slow process of agreeing to his wife's endless requests and demands. It often starts with, honey, put your dark socks in the dark hamper and your white clothes and white socks in the light hamper, then progresses to, let's go vegan together, and eventually escalates to, let's have a poly relationship, which inevitably ends in a speech about how she loves you, but isn't in love with you because, of course, she's pork and chad now, right? Throughout your marriage, the question isn't if you will be betatized, but by how much, and to the point that if you become so unattractive to her that she leaves. It's important to know that women don't do this intentionally. It's just a natural part of female nature and societal conditioning of the sexes, okay? I'm going to say this again. Throughout your marriage, the question isn't if you will be betatized, but more of by how much, and will it be to the extent or to the point that you become so unattractive to her that she bounces on you. Reduce sex drive. Men often marry under the impression that will be rewarded with reliable, consistent, wild sex before they got married. Yet one of the biggest search queries from married men is, how do I get my wife to have sex with me? What are people searching for on Google? You can go to Google Trends and you can find out for it yourself. Sexless marriages are very common today. Introducing kids in a relationship changes the dynamic, her sexual availability, or enthusiasm, and all that stuff. Another often overlooked reason for this is that her competition anxiety drops deeply, considerably, in fact, when she lives with you and you're married, and she's also subconsciously knows, family law has her back. I think a lot of women don't understand how well it has her back, but when they realize how well it has her back, oh yeah, they get it. Okay. She knows where you are at all times. She knows where you live. Therefore, competition anxiety drops. She's not constantly wondering what you're up to, who you might be with. Just understand that concept. If you want to learn more about competition anxiety, search for it on my channel. Search for Entrepreneurs in Cars. What is competition anxiety? By the way, to expand on ideas throughout the book, I've left some of these nuggets throughout it because I've covered topics like this in greater depth, often in 10 to 15-minute videos. So if you want to dive into certain elements or ideas, they're peppered throughout the book. Obviously, I can't link to the video, but you can just search for it. So let's talk about how to minimize the risks. And we should be almost done in this one. So I can't cover everything on how to minimize risks in one video. There's really a lot to unpack. I mean, there's about 6 to 7 hours of material that I have on this now. So let's just kind of scrape over it. So live where shared custody is the default arrangement in divorce. This is by far the most important consideration to make. If you live in a country where shared custody is not the default and there's a battleground that will ensue, just don't be surprised if that's what you march into, because 50% of the time that is what is going to happen. So if you want to minimize the risks of marriage, live where shared custody is the default. There are places in the world where that's available. You can go do some searching for that. So you get 50-50 upon a split unless one parent can prove. So basically, unless you can prove the other parent is a risk to the kid's safety, you're always going to get 50-50 in an environment like that, right? So, I mean, for that to happen, I don't even know if it would happen in this instance, but let's say she's a stripper, a prostitute that works in a brothel. I mean, she may not be entitled to that 50-50. You might end up being the custodial parent, but they might overlook that, But if the default is 50-50, it's like, okay, there's nothing to argue here with who has access to the kids. This is your schedule. We just deal with the assets. That's it. Assets and alimony, if that's something that's inclusive. You want to simplify this as much as possible is basically what I'm saying, right? Do both have a prenuptial and postnuptial agreement? I already talked about that, dealing with the assets. I'm not going to drill down on too much. Don't marry too far down. I've heard this come up a few times now. I've said don't marry too far down. Women will always, on the socioeconomic scale, marry across and up. That means if she's a doctor, she's not going to marry anybody that she deems lower than a doctor in value, okay? Maybe he's a doctor intern, maybe he's a surgeon intern, but he's still got doctor attached to it. He's got the upside available to him. If he runs a hot dog stand outside of Canadian Tire, then that doesn't count. Sorry, it's highly unlikely that she's going to make that concession. But as a guy, you can't marry too far down, right? Because if you marry too far down and there's alimony that's going to come into the equation, it can get quite costly for you. If she's on par with you, most guys that exit a divorce without having to pay child support or alimony do so because they married somebody that was around the same level of them in income earning potential. That's going to be hard for a lot of guys that are super successful to find. Something to consider. Don't marry a feminist. You know, it's toxic today. There's no other way to put it, but it teaches women that they don't need men, that men are disposable, that we've oppressed them, that they're privileged, that they're better than men. And you can't expect a woman to stick around when they subscribe to a belief system that indoctrinates women to simultaneously be a victim and a supremacist and hate the opposite sex at the same time. It's just never going to work out in your favor. Seek the bright triad traits: clarity, stability, maturity. Old friend, Dr. Sean T. Smith, wrote a book that covered these topics in depth. You can check it out. He covers that. Avoid the dark triad traits: narcissism, Machiavellism, psychopathy. You can learn more about that. I break it down in that area. You can also learn more. I don't have the book here, but there's a book called Dangerous Personality. It covers the 4 different dangerous personality types. They're inclusive in the dark triad traits. Author's name is Joe Navarro. You can check that out for yourself. It's also pinned in the top comment. So in the top comment, I have a link to my Amazon bookstore with all my recommended reads for men. It's there as well. Sean Smith as well in his book said, make sure you wait 2 years before you marry. I totally subscribe and co-sign that. Definitely hire slow and fire fast when it comes to a chick when you're doing your due diligence. Don't overlook indiscretions, the way that she behaves. Trust the behavior, ignore what she says, hire slow, fire fast, right? Take your time getting to figure her out. I remember we were talking one time in the earlier shows, and he said, you want to test a relationship, go on a vacation with her, right? Go on a long vacation, like a month, and see how she responds when shit happens, like the luggage gets lost or you're in a foreign country, you don't know what to do. Apply stress to it and see what happens. Live together. Definitely, if you plan on getting married, again, I'm vehemently opposed to it, but if you're going to march into the slaughterhouse, live with her, so at least you know what you're getting into. Be aware of common law, because in certain places in the world, they have common law, which means family law will apply to you, even if you don't go through a marriage ceremony. So if I'm living with a chick for 5 years, boom, you're common law. I think it's 3 years here, actually. It's 2 or 3 years. But if I'm living with a chick over a prolonged period of time, they deem you as married. All of a sudden, you have to deal with your assets, all of the assets in the household, everything, alimony. You might have to deal with child support if you have children together. So, you know, live together, but just be aware of common law where you live. Again, talk to a lawyer, buy an hour of his time, see what see what the slaughterhouse looks like before you march into it. See how she handles stress. Talked about that. See if she has a good relationship with her father. Not going to spend too much time on that. You guys should get that. She takes your name without exception. Without freaking exception. No hyphenation. No, she keeps her last name. She takes your name. That's it. You know, some guys make concessions there, and I think that's a bad place to start. There's certain exceptions to that. You marry a chick that has a framed piece of paper on a wall in mahogany and says that she's a doctor, a lawyer, or something like that. You're not going to force her to go and change that. That's fine. Leave that on the wall professionally. That's what you're known as. But when you go to the airport, the passport says it's got Cooper on it. The kid's name are Cooper. There's no hyphenation. There's none of that BS. Okay. Don't complicate the weddings. Another one. These people that spend vast amounts of money have higher probabilities of divorce. Keep it simple. Go to a destination, get a DJ, invite some close friends, and that's it. All right. That is it. Okay, I think I've covered a ton of that there, and let's close that. I'm gonna get you in 1 second, Spencer. Just give me a sec. There's a super chat here. Akis, thank you, Rich Cooper, for all the truth you spit. They should call you a laxative because that was some moving sheet. Yeah, sorry guys for the bad news, but I wish I had better news for you. The good news is I am probably going to take that 6 or 7 hours worth of material that I've collected on how to minimize the risk and distill it into a course, because I know some guys are still going to try to march into the slaughterhouse. So I'll put something together that's in very, very deep detail that's going to minimize that, at least for you, as much as possible. Spencer, pulling you in. Let me grab my headphones. Hold on a sec, but I'm probably going to do 15 to 30 minutes of questions. How you doing, bud?
Hey, what's up, Rich? How are you? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Hey, man. So kind of some background on me. So 30 years old, living in the South of the United States, pretty successful, I think, pretty good head on my shoulders. Was raised in a very conservative background, and everybody around me, like in the workplace and family, is married, and it's all very pro-marriage for obvious reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
But me, I'm spinning plates. I've been dating for a while. I'm pretty good at navigating the marketplace. I feel like, getting better and better, right, as I, learn and get more experience. But typically, my question was, how do you kind of balance that whenever you meet these women that are, really high value, and you like them, and they like you, and then you're going on these relationships, and they ask you, what are you looking for? And obviously, I try to follow the red pill, and I spin the plates, right? I do that. But you have to be honest, right? And you have to, the idea of marriage is it's very intoxicating, right? But it's very risky. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And it's hard to kind of balance that, right? Because like you want to date them for a long time, get to know them, and vet them properly. I guess what I'm getting at, and I'm struggling, is that the idea of marriage, I still haven't like killed that idea in my head, And I'm 30.
And you want to get married, or okay? Specific. Let me ask this question: do you want to have kids?
Good. Yeah, right now I don't. Yeah, right now.
So then you have no reason to get married.
Yeah, right. I agree. That's a good point.
Because like, what's the point? I mean, all that you're doing. So let's say you find the one. Okay, you've got the perfect unicorn. She shows up. You've spun plates. The cream rises to the top. All the crap falls off. You found the one. Okay.
Right.
Let's say that happens. Awesome. So now you're like, all right. And she's like, well, I want to get married, Spencer. But then you say to yourself, well, I don't want to have kids and you don't want to have kids. What's the point in getting married? See, because all that the marriage does is it just invites the state into your house.
Right.
It just like, you have to understand the way that the world works, the way that the laws have been written, and the way that women behave in and around all those things. And you have to set certain boundaries. Like a boundary that most men set is, girlfriends with boyfriends don't keep in touch with their past, boyfriends or flings or whatever, they just don't. So that's a boundary that you set and that you enforce it. And if she doesn't like it, she can pound sand. Right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, I totally agree. Agree.
So another boundary that you can set is, well, I don't want to have kids. You can say right now in your head if you want, but I don't want to have kids right now, which means I am not going to get married and I'm not going to cohabitate with a woman. Because as soon as you do, you invite a entire change of sequence into that relationship. What ends up happening? Okay, so you live together. The argument is, well, we love each other. We're going to live together. We're going to split the mortgage, the rent, blah, blah, blah. The cost of living will go down. I'll have easy, intimate access to her any time of the day, 7 days a week, in the morning, at night, when she comes home before work, whatever. Right. But what guys end up finding out is that those two like fundamental basic benefits, they don't persist into perpetuity. Right. Because as soon as you live with a chick, the competition anxiety drops.
Right.
She's going to have less sex with you after you move in together versus before. It's just the reality of those two dynamics. You have to understand that, right? So that's going to start to decrease. I mean, why is the number one search for married guys? How do I get my wife to fuck me? Right? It's not because they're getting laid like 7 days a week and she's trying to suck the chrome the chrome off a trailer hitch sort of thing. You know what I'm saying, right? Like it's not enthusiastic anymore. It's transactional. It's starfish. It's basic. There's a fucking chalkboard in the kitchen that says, if you do these 17 things, maybe I'll lick your left testicle. Right?
That sounds terrible. I don't want any of that.
Right. So why would you want to change, the unicorn
Right.
into a big fat hippopotamus that's just laying there in the swamp? Because that's what ends up happening.
Right.
She's not going to look like a better unicorn with rainbows that shoot out, her ass when she farts, and, sparkles, light up the night sky sort of thing when you guys move in together. Over time, that's what ends up happening. You just have to understand that that's the dynamic, between men and women. And if you want to have kids,
right,
and you decide that that's what you want to do, then guess what? You're going to have to try to manage all that shit as you guys live together, and you want to try to maintain genuine desire, and you're going to really have to chase excellence and continue to demonstrate that, you're her best possible option, blah, blah, blah. All those lessons.
And vet her very well, right? Like per your content in Shanti Smith, you have to really vet her. Obviously.
Yeah, well, it's watching the behavior over a couple of years, right? It's not like, there's any there's a sequence of some tests that you can do, right? But yeah, like you want to look for genuine burning desire. She doesn't complicate your life. She complements it, blah, blah, blah. There's a comment here from Norman. He said, my ex transformed from a sexual animal into a nun.
So I guess, kind of a closing question. So I guess I have to accept the fact that at least right now in my early 30s, not wanting kids, right? So I'm going to have to accept that I'm probably going to lose some potential women that are just.
Oh, you're going to lose a lot of women, especially if you're dating women your age, because women 27, to 30 or so have hit the epiphany where they're like, okay, I've partied. My eggs are drying up. I'm starting to see my friends get married. I gotta lock somebody down. Oh, who's the Spencer guy over here? Let me swipe right on him. He's handsome. Oh, he's an engineer. He makes $250,000 a year. That's a nice Lexus. Ooh, what else does he do for, you see how it goes. So they start to vet you as husband stock, as, the beta provider, because she's already had her fun on the carousel. There's going to be a lot of women that are going to tell you to get lost because they're hell bent on having kids, and you have to be okay with that.
Right.
So there's that part. The other part too is if you don't want to have kids, date younger, date 26, 27 plus younger, right?
Yeah.
And that way you don't have to worry about the epiphany phase yet.
Yeah.
Because realistically, you should be dating somewhere between 7 to 10 years younger anyway.
Right.
So if you're 30, you should be dating, 23-year-olds basically.
Right.
Yeah. Unless you want to get married and have kids, then you're going to be vetting for mother stock. And there's a whole other sequence of things you have to do to get that shit as right as possible. It's never going to be perfect. You're always going to be exposed to risk, as I just explained.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, like probably a couple years ago, like during college and everything, I was totally just drank the Kool-Aid about marriage and everything. And now I'm really waking up, and just the stats that you laid out, and is just, it's a really scary proposition. Like it really is. It's not.
It sucks. It sucks because, I watched all those shows that everybody else did, the Love Boat, the Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, all that cool shit, right?
Yeah.
A-Team. And there was always that infusion of romance into it where it was like, oh, there's always going to be that pretty girl that you're going to wife up and settle down and live on a farm and have babies and live happily ever after and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work that way. That's not the way the world works right now. There's a new rule book.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think just so many people my age that are not married, probably, I would imagine they feel like me, and they probably still think this whole idea of marriage is a great idea, and you have to rush into marriage and have a bunch of kids. I was talking to somebody at work today. He's 29 years old, and I can just see he's like fixated on like one or two ladies, and he's trying to settle down. And I'm just saying, I try to help him out, but so many men we're fixated on this idea of like locking somebody down and getting married. And it's just like,
oh yeah, dude, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change quickly. The only thing that's going to change is for the guys that have experienced some form of trauma,
exactly,
like you, like me, the other 1,600 people watching. But the people that have experienced that trauma, then they go looking for answers, and they start to see the code in the matrix, and they're like, oh, okay, so that's where I went wrong.
Right.
And they go and apply what they've learned to life. So I'm not saying don't interact with women, don't date women, but if if you're going to do it and your intention is not to have kids, why get married? It's totally pointless.
No, I totally agree.
Right?
And
I mean, if you decide in 5 years that you want to have kids, then you can say, at that point, okay, well, I have to take a more intelligent approach. And I got to talk to a family lawyer for an hour, find out what the slaughterhouse looks like where I live. Maybe I might want to move. There's different things that you can do to minimize those risks at that time. But right now you're saying, I don't want kids, spin plates, have fun.
Yeah. And I really appreciate your content, man. I've been following you for a few months now, and you've really opened my eyes so much. Like, you by yourself, I mean, it's amazing. I got a lot of value from your stuff. So keep it up.
All right. No problem, man. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
All right. Peace. I'm going to deal with a couple of comments here. I'm going to drop the join link again. Probably go for another 20 minutes top. So if you guys want to ask a question live, you can hit that. Somebody in the comments here said, why get married even if you want kids? And that's an interesting comment. So yeah, I would agree. You don't need to get married. Like, the only reason why I'm referencing marriage is because that's what most guys seem to earmark as the goalpost for some reason. I get it. So just using that phrase. No, you don't need to be married to have kids. There's many places in the world where people have children and they don't get married and they raise them together just fine. The problem, though, is you may, like here in Canada anyway, you may decide that you want to have kids, but you don't want to live in a state of marriage. That doesn't matter, because after 3 years here anyway, common law applies to that relationship, which means technically you're married and you're going to have to deal with anything that falls under that umbrella. So whether you choose to marry or not is not that significant in many parts of the world, because they apply common law to the relationship anyway. So you live together for 5 years. Let's say you've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, at the end of that, and you have to untie the knot or that relationship. By all intents and purposes, you're still married, and everything under family law applies to that relationship. So when I say married, it's a broad, loose term, applying to common law, living together, all of those things. It's the same thing at the end of the day. Yeah. Let me see what else I got here for questions. Divine says, your videos have helped me get over the loss of my ex. She wasn't my girl. It was just my turn. I didn't even realize I'd been a lifelong beta. Yeah. Like the first things that most guys say to me, and I can tell this is an army dude here and he doesn't look like a beta, but the first thing that most guys say to me after they've watched a bunch of my stuff is, wow, I didn't realize I was being such a beta. No problem. We've all been there. We've all done it, man. Let me see if there's any other questions that I missed here. I'll get you in just one sec. I got a Brandon in the waiting area. I'll bring it in just a second. Okay, it looks like I got all caught up. Oh, Tower Guy, thanks for joining the membership. Appreciate that. Welcome to the channel. All right, here we go. Brandon, what's up, dude? Can you hear me okay? Brandon, can you hear me?
It's fine. This is personally. And
here, Brandon, go to the bottom of your screen and just kill the video.
It's more like
got bad.
Broader issue, not personal.
Brandon, do me a favor. Just go to the bottom of your screen and kill the video feed, like stop cam, and let's just use audio. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. That should clear up the bandwidth because you were breaking up a lot.
So this is something I've been wrestling with personally, more on a broader scale than personal. And a little known fact about societies that I know, or that I believe, is that a nuclear family is the optimal format in order to have the most prosperous societies. And this is something I hold on to a bit. I see it in my grandparents and my family in particular. I'm sure there's issues there too, and there has been. But I kind of wrestle. I feel like I have a responsibility to not only to myself, but also to the broader community. But once I make myself, prosperous, then that kind of bleeds out to a family. And what's your viewpoint there?
Yeah. I'm going to show you the book design because I put this on the back cover. Give me a second here. I'll just open this up because what you're talking about, I can't even. I'll just give you a quick preview, but it's not. I don't even know if it's going to show up here. No, I can't do it that way. That's not going to work. I'll just read it to you. But basically, the playbook that you're working with, it's outdated. There's a new memo that's gone out, and there's a new playbook that's attached to it that you have to understand. And the environment that your grandparents grew up in, and them before them, yes, there was a prosperous nuclear family in that society, and everything worked really well. But all of that has been dismantled.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore. So you have to understand, okay, well, this is the reality of the world today. I have the new playbook. I need to start following the rules here and get rid of this old notion that I have in my head. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What is your thoughts on, fake it till you make it? If you act as if you're that successful person, you'll eventually become the person you.
Yeah, you're deviating a little bit from the topic, but I'll take.
Well, no, it's actually along the same lines. I was going to get to that. It's kind of like a circular thing.
How's that? How does it tie into the topic tonight?
Well, if you see it, when you look at I want to become this person, right? And well, you fake it till you make it. So you act as if you're a successful person. In order to become that successful person, then you are that person. Doesn't that kind of tie into the idea of the ideal? Maybe it's my ideal is to have, let's say, a family, because it'd be prosperous, and I act as if that's the thing that I would want, despite of society going a certain way.
Yeah, what you're talking about is a law of attraction, which is a little bit woo-woo for this sort of application, because I mean, you have to take a logical, rational approach to having kids in today's world. Like I said, the playbook's changed. Okay, the old set of rules doesn't apply to today's world anymore. There's a brand new playbook. I've included a lot of those elements in my book, so when it comes out in the next couple of weeks, you guys will have the benefit of all of that. But there's a brand new playbook. And you have to get rid of the romantic notion in your head that if you just act as if, then you will attract into your life that perfect woman who will never double cross you, never fuck your soccer coaches, after the game, like all of those things, right? They're all potential problems that you can run into as a guy, which you can minimize to some degree in the West. Although I'm not for it. I'll tell you guys straight up right here, right now, I'm vehemently opposed to marriage and living in a way that the state sees as marriage, which unfortunately covers if I wanted to have kids in Ontario, I'd be fucked because common law applies and you're by default automatically living under the state rule, right? So what options does that leave you with as a guy? Well, you can move somewhere that's more friendly towards fathers. That's one option. You can do some work vetting, your potential partner. That's another option. You can put some legal agreements in place. You can inform yourself with a lawyer before you get married. Those are a few more options. So those are the logical steps that you got to take to having kids if that's what you really want to have. And you have to kill off the romantic notion of if I just act as if I just, subscribe to the law of attraction and find that good girl, then I'm going to, she's just going to appear in my life,
Yeah, I hear that. I'm currently in a particular situation where I've been with my girlfriend for over a year now, and she's wanting to move in. And basically, I kind of laid it down as your financial situation is not good right now, and I wouldn't want you to be a financial burden. So I said, hey, how about you work a little bit more, you get a little bit of savings, and then we can talk about it. And I also laid down that I've also said, hey, I'm never going to get married, just from listening to what you said. And I completely agree. Like my father's been down the divorce train, and that kind of ruined his life. And I witnessed that visually, and literally tore him apart financially, physically. It was not good. But
how old are you, brother?
Regarding
how old are you again?
When they got divorced?
No, how old are you?
Oh, I am 24.
Dude, you shouldn't even be in a long-term relationship, let alone even considering, you wouldn't even entertain the conversation of, hey, Brandon, can I move in with you? No.
Yeah.
in your 20s, you lay the foundation for your life. You chase excellence. You know, you find out what your purpose looks like. You don't move a chick in at 24. That's you're setting yourself up for problems that you don't understand right now. Where do you live? Like, what part of the world? You don't have to tell me what city, but
Ohio. I'm
okay.
originally from Canada, interestingly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the state laws are like in Ohio for common law, but there's no upside to her moving in with you. She moves in with you, her competition anxiety drops. She's not going to behave as well. She's not going to be as pleasant. She's not going to enthusiastically bang you as often. You're now responsible for her and the household. She loses her job. She doesn't make enough hours. You're going to cover her ass. I mean, you're already talking about financial problems with her right now because she would be a liability. So
yeah,
this is like, it doesn't work out from any angle. I mean, you'd be better off moving in a friend or a brother, or, you know, somebody else to live with you and splitting the rent with them.
Yeah, I hear that. Definitely. How far should you take anecdotal evidence? Like, for example, I've noticed when I was like 18 through 22, 23, when I was spinning plates and playing the market, as you could say. And I noticed that my attention was always on like Tinder. It was always on going out on the weekends. And now I have something a bit more stable with this girlfriend, and she knows that, hey, I'm trying to chase excellence. I'm trying to achieve something. So on the weekends, like, it's kind of like she gets like Saturday, and then Sunday I'm working, Friday I'm working, the rest of the week I'm working. And it kind of lays a foundation of stability there where she knows I'm chasing excellence, and she kind of, and I don't have that attention towards, you know, the apps and the going out every single weekend. You have any ideas there?
Well, that's because you're focused on building your life, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you've set yourself up that you've got into an LTR with this chick. So then you've switched gears and said, okay, well, I'm going to chase excellence and go make some bank. And
no, she allows me to chase excellence better, in my opinion, because the stability factor.
Okay. Did you hear what you just said there? She allows you to chase excellence?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I do. I see that now.
You guys heard it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
A woman should never allow you to do anything. You don't need the permission of a woman to do anything. That's like grossly infused with like mommy tightness, right? I don't know if you were meshed by your mom or anything like that. Like, you know, she like overly mother you and helicopter parent you and shit.
She did. She would have let me play football as Pee-wee, and that kind of made me mad.
Yeah, well, you know, your girlfriend allows you to chase excellence. Well, isn't that convenient?
Yeah. The idea was just getting to the idea of stability opposed to me trying to, I mean, especially now in COVID, I feel like having a relationship.
Okay, fine. Go against everything that the red pill says, where you shouldn't get into a long-term relationship in your 20s. Just do one thing. Don't move her in.
I will take that to heart, because I've been so far I've been on the no path for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want to have kids in the future, right?
And do you have any recommendations for, like? I certainly do. Yes.
Okay, so vet her as wife stock then. If that's really what you want to do, and you feel like you got your wild oats sowed, and you spun a bunch of plates and you got a good notch count, you feel like you understand women, fine. Okay. Let's take a slightly different approach, but do not move her in until you've vetted her thoroughly and you've decided that, okay, now maybe at 30, I might want to throw a couple of babies in this one. But don't be stupid.
Do you have, I mean, obviously you have your videos for like vetting, and there's a lot of red flags.
I've got hours. Like, I did a private Rule Zero talk for Rule Zero Live back in October, where we did the 2-day event. And my entire hour was based on vetting for LTR or for wife stock, because that question comes up a lot from guys to me. And again, I don't support it, but I will shine a light on some shit that you need to see, so that at least you can walk into the slaughterhouse with your eyes wide open and make some better choices. So my plan is to put a course together, and I'll have something that'll be like 6 or 7 hours long, breaking down every possible scenario, and that will hopefully be useful to you. But yeah, just watch everything on the channel, man. There's loads of shit on there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go because I got
curious.
2 more guys waiting in the background, so I want to move on to make sure they get a chance. Cool?
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Don't move her in.
Yeah. Amen. Gotcha.
All right. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna pull him out. Let me grab these super chats real quick. Coco's Lawn Care. So if you need lawn care, check out Coco's. That was the best $4.99 super chat that came in today. Elijah said, I'm at the gym doing bench, and I can hear Rich say, unicorn will turn into a fat hippo in a swamp. That's, I come up with good one-liners. Just follow along. Andrew says, would there be anything wrong with moving in with a girl in your 20s if you're making good bank and you're not a pushover? I just kind of covered that. It's not a good idea. You want to avoid it until you're going to have kids. That's really the only time that it would be a good idea. Or if you're later on in life and you got that out of the way and you figure, this chick's cool, I've been dating her for a while, make a decision from there. Let's pull that out. Yeah. Tolgar, I'm going to pull you in.
All right.
And add you to stream. What's up, bro?
How's it going?
Good. I'm going to make you the last question of the night, so fire away.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, I'm 25. I own 2 businesses. I'm doing pretty well for myself. And my thing is, I value myself, right? So I've been reading the Rational Male. I've been doing, I've been working on my own mental health. I've been trying to build up my own self and like my value and whatever. And when it comes to dealing with girls, I think, and you know what, I'm gonna be honest with you, I know how to play the game, so to speak. I know how to talk. I have a nice mouthpiece. I know how to use my body language in order to get what I want. I'm assertive. So there's a lot of girls that, so they try to, how can I say, strong arm me into like giving them what they want. And when I don't do that, then they slander me, either on social media or on public, or they make a big scene about it. They tap into their energy, and they yell, they scream, they act like children, pretty much.
Yeah, they throw a hissy fit. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And like for example, like the other caller was saying, so a girl that I've been seeing wanted to move in with me. I told her no, because I know that once you let a woman move into you, that place is no longer your place of power. Now she has some power in it, because now she lives there too. So now she's going to be conditioning you every single day to turn you into the man that she wants, right? When as a man, your objective is, you have to understand there's no perfect woman. You have to understand that in order for you to get the woman you want, you have to train these females in order to be the woman that you want.
Okay.
You can't just go out and find.
What is your question?
My question is, how can I be more, how can I be more assertive in the sense that, I'm 10 toes down, I'm not backing off. And no matter what you do, it's not.
Well, it sounds like you are assertive right now. It sounds like you're setting that boundary and you're not willing to let them cross that line. So that's cool.
Of course.
Hissy fits, by the way, are a red flag. That's in my chapter on red flags. So watch what happens to a woman when you say no to her, or anybody for that matter. You're in a business transaction, you're hanging out with friends, women especially. Watch how they behave when you say no. And if they spaz out and they throw a hissy fit and they start to disparage you, like you've described, then you kick them to the curb. See you later.
Yeah. What happens when, let's say I pursue a girl, right? She rejects me. I say, cool. I back off. I do my own thing. I go talk to her friend. I go across the other room, talk to another girl. And then that girl comes back. Now, since she's the girl that I first wanted, do I still pursue her? Or do I say, you know what? Now I have options. Now I'll get to you when I want to get to you.
Yeah, you get to her when you want to get to her.
When I want to get to you, right?
Listen, she had a shot at the title. She passed.
Mm-hmm.
You move on to the next chick. She wants to come back because she wants another shot at the title. Tell her to get in line.
Exactly. All right. You're right. Right about
you good?
that. Yeah, Perfect. I just needed clarification because, it's, I look at this girl and she's, I look at these girls and they're fine and they're all glammed up. And I'm like, I'm thinking with not my mind, but, my other brain, so to speak. So it kind of clouds my judgment. So I just need, to know,
You already had the answer. You just wanted to hear me say it.
I guess, yeah. I think that's what I wanted. Yeah.
All right, brother. I'm gonna let you go because I got John from Modern Life Dating in the background. I'm gonna pull him in real quick, and then I'm gonna end the stream. What's up, brother?
Hey, buddy. Just want to say what's up and throw my 2 cents in if you don't mind.
Please do, man. Have you watched the stream?
Yeah, I just getting the morning started here in Tokyo. But I was watching and I just felt compelled to get on here. I just want to tell everybody this, like, gentlemen, look, it doesn't matter how hot she is. It doesn't matter how wonderful she is. At the end of the day, eventually you will get tired of sleeping with her. It's not going to be as fantastic and amazing, sexual experiences later in the relationship than it is at the beginning. And for you to move in a girl, like, look, let's just look at females from a clear business standpoint. It's a depreciating asset.
Did you ever see that Craigslist listing on the depreciating asset?
I have seen that.
Yeah, I think we need to do a breakdown on that one day.
I'm totally down, but I just want to tell the guys, it's going to be very hard for you to be sexually satisfied by one woman for the rest of your life. Like, we're not monogamous. I don't know if you've read about this in, all the
that's included in my book as well. I have an entire chapter on the promiscuous ape, the sapiens that we are.
And they're not monogamous either. Like, these girls want strange too. So, I mean, you're just entering.
Women love the idea of marriage, but they hate being in a marriage. That's what I've noticed.
Yep. And a big part of marriage is a societal contract to keep society going, to keep civilization going. But you can see in the West, like, society is becoming one big, corporation. Really, it's like a corporate society these days.
Yeah, it's all run by the state and by a female first primary social order. So bend the knee, worship your overlords. If that's what you want to do, if you want to get married, just understand that's a slaughterhouse you're walking into. Yeah,
that's all I wanted to say from a guy that's a professional womanizer. I'll tell you, no matter how hot she is, eventually you'll be like, "Oh, can you get away from me? Don't touch me. Like, I need something new." So don't do it. Don't do it. That's my 2 cents.
Tired of her ass too. See, there's a meme for this. Where is it? Pull it up quickly on the screen for you guys.
Titus Bear said, behind every hot chick, there's a guy who's tired of banging her. So true.
Yeah, like there's memes all over it, right? It's just a picture of a hot chick with like the caption somewhere, some guy is tired of her shit too. All right, John, I'm gonna wrap up. I got to do Zoom with my community. I'll see you soon, man.
All right, buddy.
Peace. All right. That's it for tonight's show. Let me grab this one last super chat. Titus says, behind every hot chick, there's a guy who's tired of banging her. Yep, absolutely. And Jason said, don't get married, guys. These women don't appreciate you after a while. Protect yourself. Yeah. It's rough out there, guys. I wish I had some better news for you, but it is what it is. Watch this broadcast, show it to a guy that needs to see it. I will be putting that 7 hours odd worth of material together at some point in the near future for you. So all of you adventurous guys that want to, do that, fine. I'll give you everything I got that I've learned over the last few years counseling guys. So anyway, before I go real quick, shout out to channel sponsor, Grondike Soap, Tactical Soap Company, has been a great friend of the channel. Pin in the top comment, or you can just go to coopersoap.com. Pheromone infused, handmade. It's all natural. Doesn't disrupt the endocrine system. It's good stuff, guys, and it helps support the channel. So grab some of that. And got another Before the Train Wreck, of course, coming up next Monday. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. And don't miss anything. We'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace out.